Okay, we are broadcasting live, I believe. So if we can get the confirmation from people who are connecting, you could just go into the chat and maybe type your name or sort of tell us where you're connecting from, and we will get started in just a second. I'll probably kill a bit of time by saying, presenting myself. So I'm Christian Peverelli. I'm the founder and CEO of We Are No Code. I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm currently, I used to be the director of a accelerator program. So some of you may know me through there. And we're just really, really excited to all be together. I wanted to thank Alex. I wanted to thank Hanye. I want to thank the entire team at Moonshot House for hosting these really cool events. I think that there's this exciting thing happening within these events, which is that it's not really, it's more conversational. It's not necessarily like people pitching at and people being pitched to. And I think that that's really the kind of atmosphere that I encourage in this ecosystem. So, you know, it's great to be able to moderate. Thanks for trusting me, Alex, with this, moderation process. Yeah, and you know, with no further ado, I think that I'd like to introduce some of the people that are here. So the way that we're going to go through this process today is that we're going to start off by introducing some of the what we call champions. So people that are here, and then we have some of the members that you can see here that are also going to be talking a little bit about their startups, and we're going to have a real conversation around what they're building, but then also what that industry looks like, and we'll take it from there. So the first person I'd like to introduce, and if you could just put up your hand as I call your name so people can identify you, is Taj. He is the Senior Director of Investments at Lacey. And maybe Taj, you could take just a couple of minutes to tell us sort of what you do at Lacey and who you are.
Absolutely. Christian, thank you. We appreciate that. Obrigado, since we just was talking about languages earlier. So I'm Dr. Taj Eldridge. I'm the Senior Director for Investment at Lacey. Lacey is the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator located in downtown Los Angeles. We incubate and invest in companies in the renewable energy, electrification, transportation, and circular economy space. I lead the investment team, and we do two things. We have an impact fund where we make investments for companies in our incubator. And then number two, we help our companies have liaisons with other investors and really kind of build an investment community to ensure that there's capital flowing to our companies. And myself, I'm a former director from the University of California, former founder and investor myself, and started out in banking. And Christian and Moonshot, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, I give all the credit to Moonshot for being such great hosts and for really like gathering us all here today. I can moderate, but if there's no one to moderate, then I'm here alone, speaking in the void. So the next person I'd like to introduce is Chick. So he's Creative Technology and Innovation for 4As. So tell us about yourself and what 4A is all about.
Sure. The 4As is the trade association for the advertising agency industry, and I manage creative technology and innovation, which means that I do a certain amount of consulting with the agency members of the trade association, and do business intelligence and research primarily in technology and its impact on marketing and advertising. But it's also, I have a background in, I started out, we were talking earlier, I started out as a CD-ROM programmer and have been involved as in production, creative technology production and management for a long time also. So very interested in anything that is going to have an impact on creative work going forward.
Very cool. Excellent. Thanks so much for that. And welcome. Okay, we'll go on to Humphrey Ho now. He is the Managing Director for HighLink Group. So if you could just introduce yourself and the company as well.
Hi, everybody. My name's Humphrey. I'm the Managing Director for HighLink USA. We are China's largest digital advertising agency. We are also a member of the 4As. So hi, Chick. So we do digital advertising, advertising technology, programmatic advertising, creative, PR, and social. So your classic advertising agency. We also have a ventures fund that invests in ad tech specifically. And it's very nice to meet everybody here today and to see what you have.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Okay, and now we have Alex, who is the founder and CEO at Create New Ventures. So Alex, why don't you, and by the way, he's a little bit involved as well in Moonshot House. I'll just say that.
Thank you so much everyone for joining us today. So as all of you probably know by now, my name is Alex and I'm the founder and managing partner at Create New Ventures. At Create New Ventures, our focus is on early stage investment companies that in diverse stage agnostic, vertical agnostic, and typically $200,000. Our last investment was Influx.ai 3 weeks ago that they were ex-NASA employees. So it was a kind of group from Amazon, Plug and Play, and a few other VCs investing in the seed round. And we have a really good news in the coming months. By end of this year, we have planned to announce $10 million fresh fund on earlier stage companies for 2021. Thank you so much.
Very cool. No, that's super exciting. Congratulations. I guess this is going to be the point at which I also talk a little bit about what I do at We Are No Code. So We Are No Code, our mission is really to empower non-technical founders, but also creators. So those could be creators within the enterprise, within companies, and it could also just be founders who are trying to get things off the ground. And we essentially teach them how to leverage no-code tools or visual programming tools to be able to build, launch, test, and go through everything that you need, which is essentially 3 to 6 months of traction or revenue before you can approach some of these other folks that are on the call today. At which point they'll be very excited to hear from you, and we'll be able to sort of look at your investment opportunity as well. So that's in a nutshell. And now we're going to get into the founders, and we have 3 really exciting companies today that we're going to be sort of getting into. We'll kind of jump into it. We have about 16 minutes per founder, where we're really going to go through sort of them talking about their company, and then us also having sort of a Q&A and a brainstorm within this panel of people to be able to kind of lead the discussion, whether it be the company itself or the industry. So with nothing left to do, I'm going to call up Alex from Visual Labs. Very excited to have you here. Let's hear what you're building and what you've built.
Sounds good. You guys can all hear me, hopefully. It said, because some of the guidelines were kind of open-ended, so I figured I would start with a slide, and that will hopefully open everyone's eyes kind of to what we do. And so, as Christian mentioned, the company is Visual Labs. We're based in Menlo Park, California. That'll make even more sense after I talk about my background a little bit. But we are in the law enforcement and security space primarily. But one of the things that I was most excited about being on this panel is to just talk about how our software might be used in other industries. So big picture, we call ourselves the body camera company that does not make body cameras. And that's always a little bit of a head scratcher. And in today's society, unless you've been living under a rock, I guess, in the last 3 to 6 months, you would know that the topic of police accountability and liability is a huge topic right now. And I mentioned we're the body camera company that does not make body cameras. And that's because we're totally a software company. So we have software that goes on any Android smartphone and a full back-end evidence management website that makes all of the technology that you see on the left-hand side completely obsolete. So you have police departments that issue cameras and docking stations and have servers in-house and GPS units. And they obviously do some great work in our communities, but also they're not the most technology forward. They're not the ones that are leading new technologies. And so we've been pushing them in that direction, saying, hey, you don't need a hardware-based approach in today's 21st century. We're at 2020. Officers are carrying smartphones. They don't need to be burdened with more equipment, and that connectivity for real-time situational awareness is huge. So stepping back, we're a software company. We serve mostly law enforcement, but also private security, some other industries as well, focusing on body cameras, but also dash cameras, redaction software to protect the privacy of individuals. And that is overview of the company. A little bit about myself. I actually am from Los Angeles. I went to high school down in Los Angeles. I went to Harvard Westlake. So if anybody from LA is down there, you're probably familiar with the school in Studio City. Then I went to Stanford, graduated Stanford in 2014 with a degree in computer science, and have been in the Bay Area ever since. So Menlo Park, California is about 2 miles down the road from Stanford. So still connected to the school and go to football games and alumni events and things like that. One of the questions that the Alex M said that we could talk about maybe is like a highlight of the company so far. So this project actually started out of my senior class project where we were working with BMW to do a project based on their car cameras. So the class prompt was do something interesting with our car cameras in terms of data. And what ended up evolving out of that is saying, hey, why buy dash cameras or why buy GoPros or why buy dedicated pieces of equipment when items like cars are becoming cameras as well? It's all embedded. It's the Internet of Things, and cameras are so ubiquitous today. And so that evolved to cameras using existing hardware for police. One of my highlights, I'm going to minimize here and maximize here. So this is actually a photo from this past Super Bowl in Miami. And the left hand is my dad. So he is our chief operating officer. So probably one of the unique things and highlights of the journey so far has been working with my dad the last 6 years since I graduated from Stanford. And then this is the one day a year I actually put on a tie to work the Super Bowl. So our technology is in use every day with law enforcement across the country. But these are some special moments for me to get to share that with my dad and have our technology on arguably the world's biggest stage in terms of sports. So it's been a fun journey so far. I think I'll stop sharing my screen if I can figure, there we go, stop share. Fun journey so far, lots of ups and downs. Definitely, I think my experience working with enterprise software and law enforcement is probably a different way of thinking and a different sales cycle for sure compared to companies or groups associated with like the 4As and advertising. At the same time, that presents some advantages where it's very steady, and even throughout this COVID pandemic, the police hasn't been affected that much because there's no lockdowns for the police. And then simultaneously, though, we've had this social unrest and racial tensions, and it's been, the last 3 months have been something that none of us at the company could have ever predicted. And that's also why I'm presenting here from our office as an essential business. We got to stay open and keep serving our clients. So hopefully that was right on time, about 5 minutes or so. And I'm happy to answer any questions about me or the company or just law enforcement in general, or how things have evolved in the last 3 months, which have been completely unexpected.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Alex, I think like all of us have this question in the back of our mind right now, like what has been going on? And I think like maybe bring us through the use case of what your technology solves, but then also how you see that influencing what we're kind of all seeing in the media right now.
Yeah. So for those who, I guess I'll step back a little bit. For those who aren't familiar with body cameras or that sort of technology, you may have seen Imagine videos on the news, but basically a body worn camera, and in our case, a smartphone running our software to make it a body worn camera, is worn by an officer, usually in the chest position, and they turn it on when they're making an interaction with the public, and it records the incident, and then they turn it off and it uploads to some sort of secure storage platform to be used in court. Our technology is different because, as I mentioned, we only need a single device. It's the phone. You don't need any servers or docking stations because we leverage the cloud. There's a lot of use cases for body cameras, and the one you probably see the most is it shows everything from the officer's perspective. And one of the things that I think is probably frustrating to a lot of people when they watch the news is you just get snippets from different angles when a citizen takes a video. And in some cases, when departments like in Kenosha, they didn't have body cameras, That's at least better than nothing. But that's why the narrative differs so much between what the police union says and what the citizens are saying, because you don't have the officer side of the story. Nobody has any clue what happened in the 5-10 minutes before the shooting happened. And so body cameras are meant to protect both sides of, if the police are doing something that they shouldn't, it records it. If they show that there was more to the story and the incident escalated before all the people on the street started recording, it has that side of the story. And it is a little bit complicated right now because there are these calls to defund the police, but at the same time, there's also calls for increased transparency. And increased transparency doesn't just happen by snapping your fingers. You need technology and training. And so those things are just an interesting dichotomy. And it also has been interesting for us because we're providing a cost-effective solution that hopefully meets these needs. But you're not going to satisfy every constituency these days. And that's kind of just unfortunate about today's litigious and polarized society.
Absolutely. Do we have some questions from either the any one of the champions, other ones of the founders who are going to present tonight, or maybe some people in the audience?
Well, I have a question. Alex.
Sure.
Nice to meet you. Your total addressable market, therefore, is folks like Axon, who make body cameras for police. But as a replacement of basically the entire interface from camera to the wireless unit. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Axon would probably be what you would describe as our biggest competitor. We have had agencies replace Axon with our system. We've always said, I've said it publicly, I've said it privately, they make fantastic hardware. They are developing a proprietary hardware ecosystem, and we're taking the approach of partnering with the Verizons and AT&Ts and Samsungs and Motorola's and Kia Ceras of the world to have this software-based ecosystem that allows them to pick the best of all the worlds. Yeah, I think you're spot on in terms of Axon's customers are similar to ours. At the same time, we also are serving customers that maybe are in the private sector. So we work with folks like repossessors, where they already have phones for their day-to-day job. It's not as practical for them to buy a separate Axon camera and a docking station and whatnot. So I think our approach is a little bit more approachable for a lot of these adjunct industries where they aren't wearing vests with 800 pieces of equipment, but they still need that liability protection.
Well, it also works with consumers, I think, because you have a lot of dash cams now. They are really clunky. You have to get a guy to do it still if you don't have a Tesla.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting market for you because I think Axon's $1 billion company.
Probably 5+ at this point. Correct.
Neat.
Alex, this is Taj. Can you, and I may have missed it as you were talking, when you were working with in the Super Bowl for the product, was it for security? How was the product deployed during the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so it's one of the longest days of the year. We start at like 8 a.m. and end at like 2 in the following morning. It's used with the security staff, and we're part of it as well. So that's one of the few days I also wear a body camera. So it's kind of cool to wear your product. Our assignments have mostly been escorting the talent. So last year, Shakira, J-Lo, some of the owners, to make sure that they aren't harassed as they're going from their car to the parties to the suites. And so it's really documenting any sort of interactions that we might have with fans who maybe want to get a little too up close and personal with some of these celebrities. So knock on wood, it's kind of funny. The Super Bowl is not one of the times where you see a lot of fights that you might hear about like at a Raiders game or a soccer match, but the stakes are so high where if Roger Goodell, the commissioner, had a beer thrown on him, that would look very bad for the league. And so that's what we're trying to avoid.
Excellent. Do we have some other questions?
Yeah, I was thinking of raise my hand. One of the things that this impressed me by was the was the user experience, actually, the thought that went into the user experience when I reviewed the product. It reminded me also of something that has been, that's come up a lot in the, what we're calling the contactless economy or remote economy. You may be familiar with something that Lowe's just created called JobSite, which allows people in their professional construction community to have the homeowners use their cell phone to directly send images of things that may be broken inside of the home. And for the, on the other side of that is something very similar to, what I saw in your product, where there's a kind of a monitoring station of someone off site who is receiving the video and the information and can then send information directly back to the cell phone user. So it seemed that I just wondered, like if the software, your software as a platform, could be used in many other use cases, and has anybody explored any of those? It seems like I know Lowe's has an innovation lab, and they went out to a specialist to develop this product, but potentially right now, anybody who needs to come into a home to do an inspection, just to be able to sell a product, even something as simple as, let's say, an air conditioning installer, could actually visit a home, do measurements, do all sorts of things without needing to enter the home, just by using the user's cell phone. So just something that I thought of when I reviewed your product.
No, I appreciate that. You're definitely on the right track of documenting. Anytime where you need to document the quality of work or document that the accountability or any sort of issues, that's where this all-in-one concept of videos, photos, the live streaming comes in. Probably just as a business standpoint, it's just an interesting, we debate this all the time of how much do we focus on what you might consider the low-hanging fruit, like law enforcement, where it's very clear what the value proposition is, and it's just a matter of why is Visual Labs better than Axon or Motorola or whatever, versus how much business energy do we spend opening up these new markets where body cameras aren't as prevalent or people haven't explored it as much. And so that's something that we're always debating and trying to strike that balance as well. But I appreciate the feedback.
Alex, do you have a question?
Yes, so Alex, I know you almost for 3 years.
Yes.
Last time I tried to call you, it took 3 months to connect with you in 2020. I totally understand that. So my question for you is that, how do you see the movement? I mean, do you really think government agencies trying to implement new solutions to transparent the whole process? Because you are the best person to ask, because they're coming to you and you can tell us more. How do you really see the future?
Yeah, in our industry right now, most people are saying that within about the next 3 or 4 years, body cameras will be close to 100% deployed on police departments. It'll be similar to a radio. It'll be a standard piece of equipment, because you saw what happened in a place like Kenosha, Wisconsin, where there was no body cameras, and now there's a huge riot. To be fair, Officer Chauvin in Minneapolis, he was wearing a body camera. And so body cameras are not a panacea, but if you don't have a camera, you just don't have your side of the story, and no one knows what happened. And that just creates a whole bunch of speculation. So whether body cameras are the perfect tool, they are one of the best tools, at least that we have right now, to be able to have the point of view of the officer in these high stakes, high risk scenarios. And I think, whether for better or for worse, if you don't have that, the department is going to look like they are insufficiently deploying technology with their officers.
Super interesting topic. I think that this is very sort of current, and I think that we're all kind of interested in hearing these things. So I think the last question to kind of wrap up would be, you know, with it, what are some of your challenges, and how can, you know, the other people in this community, like, where would you be looking for some help? Like,
yeah, I think the biggest challenge, and it's also, I mentioned a benefit as well, is when you're working with governments, that does not happen overnight. And so that, whereas if you're in the consumer space, you're more used to a rapid place of adoption. I've been monitoring the QAs. People have a lot of interesting things as well. As I think just knowing in today's world, there's so many avenues when it comes to liability limitation, when it comes to accountability, that people, when I present, always have various ideas of this industry or this person. And the more people you talk to that realize that a software-based approach that does something good for society is something to explore, that's always helpful for us, because you never know where those conversations are going to go.
awesome. Very cool. Okay. Well, that was fascinating. Thanks so much, Alex, for sort of presenting all of that, and thanks for everyone also for posting their questions. Thank you also for letting me know that there was a separate sort of QA box than the chat. I actually use different software when it comes to my webinars. So excellent. Okay, let's hop into the next founder. But before that, I wanted to quickly mention that Moonshot House has a short survey that's been just posted in the chat. The aim of the survey is really to bring, you know, the audience and the other people in this panel sort of the kind of conversations, the kind of events that you're looking for. So if you could just take 5 minutes, whether it's during the event, because, you know, Christian's speaking a lot, or after the event, if you could just take a moment to fill that out, that'd be great. And so next up, it's going to be very excited to present Ben Baltz, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He is the co-founder and CEO at Toybox. Ben, welcome, and please tell us a little bit more about what you're working on.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I don't know anyone here, so this is extra special for me because I get to meet a lot of great people. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Toybox, and pretty much what we do is we create a 3D printer and creativity platform for kids to be able to print their own toys right at home. And, you know, kind of before I go into the details of how that works, I can give you some background on and what led us up to this. So before this, I was working as a software engineer at Microsoft, specifically in the data space and, you know, on the user experience end. So, you know, analyzing large amounts of data to inform user experiences. So when I was there, I met my co-founders and I got really into 3D printing. This was like the very, I guess, the upswing of 3D printing, where there's a lot of promises. For me, I found it fascinating. You know, for the first time in my life, I was actually able to build physical goods. I've always been fascinated with building things. You know, I was a programmer by trade, so I'd build a lot of digital things, but never had the resources to actually build hardware. So for me, that was very eye-opening and freeing in a lot of ways. And, you know, I built all types of art. You know, I built a lot of things around the house to help out, lots of little contraptions. You know, my dog has 3D printed dog tags. And, you know, I remember one time I was floating down the river and I didn't have flip-flops, so I actually printed those with the softer material. So for me, it was actually very nice to have. So, you know, I was fascinated with that experience. The scene was blowing up, and there's a lot of new innovations coming out with hardware. So, you know, before we started this product, I actually met my two co-founders while at Microsoft, and we were just obsessed with building things. And what we noticed was there's a lot of new innovations coming out on the hardware side. You know, we kind of drew the parallel to what was happening in the computer revolution. And essentially there's no hardware platform to be able to take advantage of these new hardware mechanisms, whether that's, different types of extrusion technology, different sizes of printing. So before we even started Toybox, we were actually working on a hardware platform that could accommodate, all new changes. It's plug and play, so you could swap out the components and it would just work. The printer would read its configuration. We got pretty far in that project as a side project that we probably spent just as much time on it as at work. And as we got further, we realized there's one really big blocking feature for anything like that, or two big blocking features. And one was that there is no software platform that could accommodate these changes. So if you look at the 3D printing industry right now, it's all segmented: software, the hardware. There's so many different flavors, and it's really stifling innovation because software guys are not going to make stuff for the hardware guys, and vice versa. The second was that there's no great consumer use case for it. So, without a great consumer use case, you don't drive massive adoption. So, that's kind of when we went back to the drawing board and really thought about what we could create and, how we could kind of bring that same joy to actual consumers that we had. For us, the process as tech people is still, we probably spent a good few months getting used to the 3D printer. And a lot of it had to do with the integration and the interface. So really thinking about big potential markets, for the state of 3D printing right now. There's a lot, plastic containers make up a $90 billion industry. You have hand tools, which is an $8 billion industry. Cosplay, which is now a $20 billion industry. But the thing that stood out most to us is, what would be the most practical and what would be get people over the hump of buying a printer to put in the home. So, we actually landed on toys because it made a lot of sense. Essentially, everything that we make are real toys that can be 3D printed. So this is a little bender. You have this is a launcher gun that launches discs like 30 feet. This is Luke's lightsaber. So, we thought that'd be a good probe into the house. Oh, this is a shoe I printed for my girlfriend. She does not wear this, but I thought it was cool. So we got to working on that, and it was really about creating a whole user experience that, is palatable for a user. So we own the whole stack. You can see my printer behind me over there. And essentially the way it works, you plug it into the wall, you open an app, you connect that printer to the internet, and from there, everything's just plug and play. So if you want to find something, we have a catalog of hundreds of thousands of toys now, and you just press a button and print it. Everything's biodegradable. It's great for the environment. And, so we launched that probably about 3 or 4 years ago. The scale has been increasing quite tremendously. First year, we sold something like 400, then we sold 2,000. Then 8,000 after that. Now this year we should finish profitable at around 24,000 units. So the scale's been growing quite fast. So we do think we really hit the nail on the head. But really, the overall vision of what we're building isn't just this toy ecosystem. I think it's a huge market, but what we really want to do is introduce 3D printing to common people, and actually have the utility function of being helpful in the household. So when you have that toy box in the household, if you do want to print a hand tool that you don't have and you don't want to wait 2 days off Amazon, you can just go to the store and click that, and it'll print that for you. So, we've experimented with that a little bit. We are just hitting a benchmark of 1 million toys printed on Toybox to date now. So I'm very excited about that. But when COVID hit, there's a lot of supply chain shortages for masks, and for even in New York, I don't know if you remember, like the huge ventilator valve shortage. We actually put that stuff on our platform. We didn't push our community at all, but we really opened up a new vertical outside of toys, and it was really interesting to see because the whole community, they built their own groups up, and they actually printed 40,000 different items for PPE gear for hospitals, without us pushing them. And these are all kids, these are kids that people that normally couldn't access a 3D printer, really making a huge change. So, we were very excited about that. CNN ran a piece on it, so that was pretty exciting, seeing kind of the buzz that it created. But, ultimately, right now we are focusing on toys. There's a lot of avenues outside of that. We're in the final stages of signing a deal with one of the largest license holders, one of the largest studios in the US. And, from here, it's just all about expansion, making sure, we're really pushing the envelope on our whole stack, whether that's the hardware or the software. One thing that I didn't mention is, sure, we have this huge catalog of what people can create, but we really try to push the envelope on what we're doing in new, unique ways. So a lot of people say if you want to take advantage of 3D printing experience, you need to know how to CAD. We've taken a completely different approach where we say, no, we're building this user experience, and all the intricacies of 3D printing, the experience should be built in a way where if someone wants to create something on the platform, they don't even have to think about that. If you want to create an action figure on the platform, you want to create a car or something, we have apps that are built in a way that you can't screw it up. So just like Bitmoji, you design your action figure and then you can print that out. So we're pushing creativity in new ways without, the huge learning curves that are associated with 3D printing. But I think that kind of wraps up what we do in a nutshell without going too deep. But happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Excellent. I guess my first question would be, what are you printing? Like, what's the material that you're printing? I know there's big differences between sort of, printing with plastic, printing. Now there's, metal. You can even do 3D printing with metal, which is a lot more complex. You said it was biodegradable. I'd love to know what it is.
Yeah, so we're printing with PLA, which is corn plastic. It's pretty common in the 3D printing space. Version 2 is coming out mid next year, and the really exciting thing about that is we built it in a way where we can start doing really interesting things from the hardware front and the materials front. So this idea of full automation and saying, right now you print things in pieces and you assemble it, but being able to fully automate the process where you say, I want this whole toy, you're feeding in different materials, and whether it's soft or hard or different colors, the printer can read that configuration and take that forward for you.
Very cool. Do we have some additional questions?
Yeah.
Taj.
Yeah, I'll go. Thank you, Christian. Ben, really love the fact that you're using biodegradable products for it, and I love the fact that you're using names like grapefruit and mint for the coloring. That's really great. What is the age that you're targeting for the product?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the age range is 6 to 12. We're finding typically the heavy parts around 8 to 10, but 15% of our users are adult users. And I think the really exciting thing about our demographic, half or 40% are female, 60% male. We're getting really close to the 50-50 split, so that's not something I expected. But I think the really amazing thing is 90% of our users have never touched a 3D printer in their life before. So, this whole idea of breaking out of the hobbyist space, I think we're doing a good job there.
Yeah, I think the product pricing is really great. I look at schools that have access to 3D printers and how, some schools don't have access to it. And I think, a lot of times when the kids, I've learned here where I live at, they're not really excited about the 3D printing because they look at it as work in school. But I think this kind of makes it a little bit more different for it because now the kids can really kind of create a lot of their identities. In addition to that, I look at some of the things too, by being able to make their own product, you can have a lot of diversity in it by having kids with disabilities or anything else, or figures, I should say, with disabilities that can be created that we don't see mainstream.
Absolutely. That's a big part about what we do is make it fun and exciting. So happy to hear that.
No, I really love that. I think that that's the smart way to go about it. And also addressing that younger community is really setting this up to have a bright future as well. I think that that's something that we're starting to see in no code is like, well, some of the younger people are actually more tech savvy and they can grab some of these tools and run, right? And so I think you're right in terms of like getting them excited, like transitioning their mindset from like, hey, this is like a thing I have to do for school to like, what? I can print my favorite character and I can do it myself. I think that's really, really fun. So we have a question from the audience from Tracy, who's asking about your marketing plan and who you're targeting.
Yeah, so I wonder how deep we want to go here. Marketing, pretty much all of our sales, so I'd say probably 95% of our sales have come directly on our e-commerce platform. Everything's done through Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads. We like that strategy because it's very scalable. So, we've been scaling at, 3 or 4x every year. And, over time, our unit economics actually improve. So profitable unit economics, but those are growing over time. So our advertising's become more efficient. In terms of strategy, how deep do we want to go here? We find that moms are 60% more likely to buy. So, we lean heavily in that in that direction. So I think our purchasers are about 80% moms. And really what we found is a lot of people look at our company and they, at least from the investment side, or, from the entrepreneur side, they say, oh, this is an education play. It's actually not at all. When we developed this product, I grew up, in Section 8 housing and, the middle of nowhere in Ohio. I really try to build for those users, and we're still a little high on the price point. Version 2 will be around $200. But we're so obsessed with learning and education here. But the truth is, vast variety of the U.S. is really focused on these consumer products, and if we can sneak in the education there, it's a great way to do it. So it's really just purely a consumer play, and those ads actually work much better than the education ads that we run. So the good news is the demographic is much larger there, but then we get kids excited in building in that way. I don't know if that answered your question. I can go deeper.
I think that was a pretty good shot. Chick, why don't you ask a question?
Yeah, I just wondered about what kind of community is, are either you fostering or getting built? First thing I did was to go onto YouTube and find YouTube videos on, 3D. Saw there was a nice review of your product on YouTube, and and it seemed like, oh, there's I remember the early days of 3D, people were sharing models. There was, a lot of conversation. Like maybe even marketing through Twitch or something like that, doing demos, and just wondering, how that's going.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very important point. Community is something that's extremely important and really binds people to the product and gets people hooked and, sharing what they make. We have not yet been able to push into the community as much as we want to. So, you'll see like a Facebook community has formed. I think it probably has a few thousand users now. We don't moderate that at all. What we want to do is build a community directly into the app, right? So we do have, now it's interesting, most of our content on the site is actually submitted by users. But we do want to open up discussion on the website so people can help each other or, learn from each other. Show off what they've made. It's tricky because since we are a kids product, we do have to abide by COPPA regulations. So, we're kind of threading the needle, but right now we're still a small company. We have probably about 6 product people. So, the big focus right now is bringing in these licensed goods and additional revenue streams. But, I think after the next round of funding, the community aspect is something that we really want to hammer.
Very interesting. Cool. Well, we're reaching an end to this segment, but is there anything that the community can do for you? Like what would be areas of help you would be looking for?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is, scaling has been going pretty well. We're approaching, kind of another level of our company where we're starting to consider how we expand even further. And retail is one of the big ones, international is one of the big ones, and then really pushing the hardware innovation. So, we're a team of software people. We've kind of learned hardware the hard way, but there's a lot of gaps in our team there, and figuring out how do we push this hardware in really new, exciting ways. We did that. I think we innovated really greatly on the software front, and now that's ahead of the curve. What we want to do is get our hardware ahead of the curve as well, and really be the one-off solution for creating things at home. So those are the big challenges that we're facing coming up. They're exciting challenges. So I'm pretty excited about that, but any type of help in those areas is definitely great for us.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. And you already have someone in the chat, Tracy, who's telling you that she can get you on a podcast, scheduled for a podcast that will be broadcasted to over 100,000 users. Right. So there you go. That's just a great example of what you can get when you join these type of events and talk about what you're passionate about in building.
Yeah, I will
So
say I've been to some events like this, but you know, in terms of like the people that you guys have put together, you know, I think this is much more impressive, and I really like it. So thanks for having me.
Alex, you did a great job. Hanya, you too, and everyone else at Moonshot House as well. Great. Well, thanks so much for that, Ben. We're going to go into the last segment, which is a presentation that's going to be from Ori Hoffnung, and he is the founder and CEO at Giant Leap. Ori, welcome. Let's hear it. We're excited.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Moonshot, for Thank you all for having me on this very interesting discussion. And what I wanted to really give you kind of like a quick overview about us, about Giant Leap. So at Giant Leap, what we do is we help parents make data-driven decisions about their children's development. And what I'm going to show you is how we do it. So when you think about the child development space, I hope you can now see my screen. You think about parents who are navigating in a world where you have all the knowledge gaps in a world of information overload, and then understanding what's right for my child, his or her skill set, in their stage of development becomes a huge challenge for parents, because parents are not trained as neuropsychologists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, just to mention a few of these disciplines in the complex world of child development. And what we try to do at Giant Leap is we try to make it easy. And what we did is we developed a platform designed in partnership with the Texas Medical Center in Houston, where parents are able to evaluate their children's brain, language, social, emotional, and motor abilities from the comfort of their home. And how it works is by gamifying all the recent breakthroughs and benchmark assessments in child development that test for these skills. So the software works by the child playing a series of games designed to understand their different cognitive abilities. And we're going to show a quick example of how this works. So let me just play this video real quick.
Are there more yellow or blue hot air balloons? There were more yellow balloons, so we'll tap on the yellow balloon. Tap the screen when you're ready to play.
This is the iPad the child is playing with. They can do it from their living room. So what you saw here is there are a couple things that the software is doing while the child is playing with the device. So this is a process that used to be, before Giant Leap started, only done by professionals. And the software is asking first, does this child know how to follow directions? Then the software asks itself, does this child can do these specific requirements beyond the point of guessing? Is the accuracy rate above the point of guessing? And only then the software actually collects data about the child's performance. In this way, this is a way for us to protect the software from collecting any garbage data to the system, because we are designing a tool for a non-controlled environment, meaning a parent and a child in their home. And this is what we tested in a medical center. We had a room that was designed to mimic a home environment. We had cameras, and we were trying to understand all the scenarios that you can think of that can happen in a non-controlled environment, such as a living room with a scientific product like we have. This next phase is that parents answer a series of questionnaires that are designed to understand the child's functioning in both home and school environments. And when all this data is collected, this is what we are able to provide parents. We're basically turned all these really complex scientific findings about children's development into intuitive language that any parent can understand and follow from the convenience of their home. And we also tested it on parents, and every time we explained all these scientific measurements to parents, we try to understand what information do they actually retain and how good can they understand this overall evaluation of their child development. And the last piece is that we provide parents with content that is only relevant to the scientific findings that we find in these evaluations. So Christian, let's say that you did this evaluation, you're a 4-year-old child, and your parent did it with you. And
I'm not far from that.
Huh? What was it?
I'm not far from that.
Yeah, I knew who to address this question to. I need a courageous volunteer. So the idea is that if you excel in flexible thinking, for example, then your parent would pretty likely would want to understand, how do I nurture this skill from a very early age? So what we do is we match this content, kind of like these courses that are similar to what you have in platforms like Headspace, and we give parents bite-sized courses that they can do every day with their child, with activities that are both real-life activities or stuff that they can consume inside the app. And every time they finish an activity, we show the parents how much time are they investing in science-backed activities in their children's development. So this is a quick overview of how the product works. We launched the product this year in March. Since then, we've been growing at around 40% month over month. So that was the positive side of launching really when COVID started. So we suddenly had parents at home. The challenge that we solve is much stronger when parents are at home and now experiencing their children in a different way at home their whole time, where they were thrown into a situation where they don't have the skill set to deal with it, and they have all these questions about their children's development. And suddenly we came with this tool exactly for that. And today what we're working on is the other side of the platform, which you saw, the content piece. Because there's so many, if you saw the spider web graph, we're trying to show you your child as a whole, right? And a lot of skill sets that you will not necessarily get from just doing a IQ test or a neuropsychological evaluation. We try to show you what we believe at Giant Leap, that an individual is much more than just an IQ score. There's so many factors to someone's skill set. We try to make it as comprehensive as possible and show you the opportunities you have with your child. And if there are particular areas of difficulty, how and when to work on these areas of difficulty with science-backed activities. So that's a very quick overview about Giant Leap and what we do.
Super interesting. So now we'll open up to some questions. Chick?
Just a quick question about whether this is also part of a feedback loop with the, first of all, the scientific community, and then potentially also with the parent community, where the data that's being collected through the platform could, with the right permissions and understandings and transparency, sort of feed into progress also in neuropsychology?
Yeah, so what's interesting about what we did is when we started the platform, people said there's no way you would be able to collect all this data reliably in a platform in a non-controlled environment in the living room. So, all these neuropsychologists asked us, well, what if the child goes and needs to go to the bathroom? And what happens if the parents help this child in the middle of an evaluation? You will never be able to understand these things. And what we did in the Med Center was we tried to create all these mechanisms to protect the database from collecting garbage data, which was one of the biggest challenges we had from an R&D standpoint in the platform. So today, we're getting close to being the largest study ever conducted in this space, because our platform is light touch and scalable and can be done from anywhere. So that's really something that enables us to partner with a lot of researchers, because the database is getting really rich and diversified. And we understood that if this would be something that would be implemented in many institutions, as you said, educational, home setting, school setting, it has to have two kosher stamps. We call it the kosher stamps. From the medical community, that's why we partner with the medical center. And from the educational community, and that's why we partner with an institution called Advantage Testing, which is one of the largest private tutoring companies in the US, with over 30 locations nationwide, to help with the educational content. And today we're working with the researchers and education professionals about everything the platform does, whether from the evaluation or the content that we provide, the post-evaluation. Now, another thing that we do is that if you think about a child's brain, it's one of the most flexible things you can think of. I mean, their brain is changing at a pace about every 3 months. So every evaluation we conducted at 4 years old is invalid in 4 and 3 months because so much has changed. The child experienced new experiences, has richer vocabulary, many things have changed. So in order for us to understand what's right for this child today, then we'll need to reevaluate, understand what's true today, and according to this, provide new content and recommendations. So the cycle works is that we evaluate, we give these recommendations, and then every 3 months we reevaluate and adapt. So before that, parents would never go through such process. It's too grueling, too expensive, too complicated. Then we suddenly made it into something that they can do with their children on their time at home, and get all the the knowledge of many care providers in one place, and then recommendations on what to do according to their personal case.
That's very fascinating technology. I think that, there's a lot of parents who have those questions early on, specifically when they're like going through a first child and they don't necessarily know the stages of development. Is this also something where you feel like it can point towards sort of like discovering early sort of signs of autism, signs of potentially like learning disabilities? Like, is this something that could help with regard to that? Because I saw this fact the other day where it was like, so many people who are on the, let's say the lower sides of the spectrum of autism are completely undetected until they're like almost like 18. It's like crazy. Like the age goes so high. Does this help with some of these?
Yeah, so the software has these capabilities. One thing that we understood that we need to be very careful with is with the marketing and messaging of this platform. So I'll give you an example. When we tested a product in Houston, we started off by focusing more on learning disabilities and things in that realm. And not many parents, it was hard for us to recruit parents for the studies. And when we focused on the other part of trying to show you what are the opportunities you have with the child and how to nurture them, we had many parents coming in. So the software has the capabilities, but from a marketing standpoint, we don't highlight them as much because I don't want you to think that we are only like a bearer of bad news tool. But we can help with a lot of things, because think about what we're trying to create is use this knowledge, mold it into one device that can screen many different things from many different disciplines in a way that is, not invasive, fun for the child, not in the most natural environment we can think of, because it's not that they're being assessed by someone foreign to them. They're playing a game. We made the whole experience, feel like a game, but we had to stay loyal to the scientific principles of creating, basically providing reliable data. And that was really hard because we wanted to do all these really fun stuff, all these emojis and things, but our scientists always told us there's a limit to what we can do. So we tried to make it as fun as possible with the constraints that we have, and we were always pushing the envelope on that, on making it even more gamified, trying to get new flexibility from our research team to go with the flow with some of the stuff we want to do with the gamified side, so children can do more evaluations and we can get a wider spider graph about their abilities and discover things that parents otherwise would never be exposed to.
Very powerful stuff. Yeah. So do we have some additional questions? We're reaching the end, so maybe we can have another question or two potentially from the, okay, someone has a contact in Colorado.
And,
so that might be
questions about homeschooling. So about homeschooling, we do, there are two communities that are really getting really big at Giant Leap is homeschooling community and parents of gifted and talented kids. What we're trying to do today is get, to lower income populations, which is another part of the mission of Giant Leap. So we're trying to partner with charter schools and other populations to help them also with that. So that's another thing we're trying to do. And yeah, if you have contacts in Colorado or anywhere around the country, I would love to get in touch with these people.
Just one last question very quickly. Has there been any interest about using this in schools?
Yeah, so
Public schools?
in public schools, it's more challenging because they have a set curriculum. It's harder for them to do it, but we believe that this will be. We already started talks with several institutions and one school district. With private schools, we already have a few agreements with. So we found it much easier to deal with more innovative private schools that are very forward thinking. But you can think, if you look at it from the flip side, we are also challenging education, especially in preschool and kindergarten, where things are pretty set, and then suddenly you come out with a tool that is showing you how jagged every individual is and how unique they are, and a lot of things that, you know, these institutions will be a little bit hard for them to create a curriculum to. So you always, when we deal with these institutions, they really see the value of it, but they're also scared a little bit from it at the same time.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for that. These were three really interesting topics and companies. I think that like we all got a lot from this. So thanks so much to the three founders who presented, and to all the panelists, as well as the entire team at Moonshot House as well. So I guess the last couple things I'd like to say is that, so the next event, the Fireside Chat, is gonna be with Woman of the Decade. Her name is Amelia Antonetti, and that's gonna be on the 1st of October at 1 p.m. So make sure to block off that time of your schedule and meet back just right here in a couple of weeks. So again, I'd like to thank all the people who came to watch. I'd like to thank Alex, Taj, Ben, Chick. I was gonna say my own name. That's hilarious. Ori, Humphrey, and also behind this Moonshot House here, we also have Hanye. So I want to thank her as well. No, this was really terrific. Look forward to kind of bringing some of these conversations off the offline. And I want to be respectful of time. We're now 1 minute over. But thank you for taking this hour to share with all of us, and look forward to doing the next one. Bye to everyone. Have a great Friday and a great weekend.